Hello, everybody, and welcome to Politics on the Rocks, Episode 4. Yeah, it's crazy. We've been doing this 1 month already. So, as always, we have Chris here with us.
How's it going?
We've got Bookie.
Hello, hello.
And, as always, the hostess with the mostest, Cameron Hunnicky.
Hey!
And, of course, I am your... probably not your favorite one on the set, but Nick, as always. And Cameron has a special guest with us. Cam, go ahead.
Special guest for the week, Iron Smoke Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Lovely.
Oh. What do we think about this? This is a little different.
It is different. It's quite a bit different.
Yeah.
I like it. I enjoy it.
It's got a pretty hefty bite, I would say.
I feel like they definitely warn you with the iron smoke.
Yeah, they'll let you know.
It's a super smoky flavor, yeah.
It's
Not in a bad way, though.
No, in the beginning, though, it's like right there in your face.
Yeah.
But then it finishes like real sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of nice.
It is.
A little
It's got
different.
Little dance.
I mean, it's significantly different than what we have been drinking.
Yeah.
And since we've done this 4 times, we're experts. So.
What's everyone smoking on? I've got a Alec Bradley Black Market tonight. What do you guys got?
Just got the Ave Maria. Nothing special today.
What do I got here, Cam? I got some Village cigarillos.
Actually, where's the wrapper for that?
It says Villager, maybe.
These things
Villager,
came,
yeah.
3 of them twisted together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little
Give them the
background.
rundown, yeah.
A little background on that. So back in the day, and they still might do this, I'm not really sure, but back in the day, they would do, they would allow the factory workers, the people that, roll cigars, they would allow them 3 shift cigars per shift. And what they would do is they would take the cigars and they would braid them together, essentially. So it was a way for the factory to know which ones are shift cigars and which ones are, actually factory line cigars that are, potentially being stolen. So cool little fact for the evening. You learned something.
Nothing like a good history lesson.
Yeah. If you learned nothing about politics on this show, you learned a little bit about
Which
cigars.
you probably won't. But.
Speaking of which, today we're going to be talking about the banning of critical race theory in Florida, picking up traction a couple other places in the country, but we'll be talking about it from Florida's perspective. I guess it's kind of the same, right? Regardless. It's a state level ban on, certain public education type deals.
Just more Daddy D doing his thing.
Daddy D. We've been talking a lot about him, and people are going to start thinking we got a crush on him.
You know what? How can we avoid
We don't?
We can't, yeah. Well, we don't always have the best things to say about him either. Have we ever said anything good
No,
about
I don't.
him?
I mean, we don't hate the guy. We have our principles,
Yeah, we're just critical on...
on everything.
Yeah, on everything. That's
I feel like so far we've been mostly in agreement with them. Maybe, so I guess this whole social media thing, we weren't.
Yeah. We'll see how we feel about this one. And then we're also going to be talking about Indian River County going up against Brightline Railroad Company and formerly All Aboard Florida, right?
I believe so. Either formula or they bought it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be talking a little bit about that.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. And as tradition
I go
leads us, Bookie, take it away.
Which one do you guys want to start with? We can jump into some choo-choo trains or get
I feel like
into...
we'll probably have a little bit more to really talk about with the trains, right?
Yeah, go for it. We'll shoot that one.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So we'll go with the Brightline. And the route we're taking right now is the recent news is Indian River County has been in a lawsuit with them for maybe 3 years, I believe.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 29. It was either 18 or 19.
Yeah. And what's going on now is they've settled with Brightline because they weren't able to get however you want to say it, they weren't able to stop it completely, but they were able to get 34 million for safety upgrades to all of the Indian River County train stops.
Crossings. Yeah, it was 30 plus crossings, I think, between...
This is the settlement.
Yeah, this is what they settled on.
Yeah.
And what the state or the county spent, close to $4 million in
Yeah,
legal
it was only
fees
4, and they got around 34.
You're right.
So, I mean, which isn't, I guess, if you just do the quick math, isn't bad in a sense, but So that's where we're leaving off in the news. But again, obviously this started when a lot of people in Indian River County, and I would probably say most of the East Coast of Florida, didn't want the rail company to use the East Coast line that we have here in Florida. A lot of them would say it was going to go too fast, safety hazard. How many stops do they have per day? Was that going to break up, this massive influx of traffic that we don't really have? So it doesn't really make sense. But no, so of course, people always had their things they didn't want to go on. And then a private fund in Indian River County was started to donate, I think, around $200,000 to keep this lawsuit going. And so, now Brightline will start in its phase 2, which is its line from West Palm to Orlando. And they've settled with Indian River County.
Big upgrades coming, I guess, right?
Yeah, it would seem so.
So when they first introduced that lawsuit, Martin County was also
a part of it.
Part of that, right?
I believe
and
so.
And they settled their own, made an agreement with Brightline, and the agreement was that there's going to be a Treasure Coast stop. But that has yet to, Brightline has yet to, elaborate further on that.
Yeah, they have not.
See, I feel like that would have been a way better use of our, especially because it's tax, it's tax funds that's paying for these lawsuits. I'm not sure if there was, but none of this really went to a vote at the county level. It was kind of like this county decided what they were going to do, and then they did it. I feel like a majority of the people,
As far as suing them.
right?
Yeah.
I feel like a majority of the people, if they had a say, would have been more in favor of them using that money to fight to get a stop here versus allowing them to just pass right through here.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We do have, a good portion of our population in the county is older, so I know that
because
definitely drives
the challenge with the stop is, from like Vero Beach perspective, right? The challenge is not only the plus side being that you can get on it, right? I mean, go to Miami or Orlando, but I know the way the people look at it is also the stop means people get off, right? And now you're going to have an influx of people from Miami and Orlando and Vero. I don't know. I think they look at it both ways,
Yeah, and I guess that's fair, but
I mean, not that I don't know that really matters that much. But
right. Well, I don't know. I think you'd see a lot more. I think you see an influx of younger people coming to this area because how great would it be if you could hop on a train living in Vero or Sebastian in Indian River County, if you could hop on the train, whatever it is, 45. Well, how long did it take to get to Orlando? Or how long does it take? Are they projecting?
Depending where you are, like an hour 15, hour and a half.
Yeah. So how awesome would that be if you didn't have to deal with traffic? You could just hop on a train, hour, and you're in Orlando, where there's obviously way more work than there is around here.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an international airport, so
yeah. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. That's an obvious one, right? Having to deal with Orlando Airport and parking your car and
right. Yeah, that's.
a pain
I
in the
just
ass.
had to deal with that this weekend, so
yeah,
it's fresh in my memory.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I was in favor of getting a stop over because let's face it, they're a multi-billion-dollar railroad company, right?
Right.
You're not going to beat them. I don't care who you are. You're not going to beat them in court.
Right.
Yeah, that and you bring up the railroad company. It's actually pretty interesting. I was looking through it. They're the first private railroad company to start adding new track. I think almost 100 years in the United States. That's pretty ridiculous.
They've been at it for 100 years.
No, they're the first private railroad company to be adding new track
Wow.
and adding new lines in the first time in
the
100,
last 100
years.
years. Wow, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, Amtrak basically took over like the
Exactly.
railroad industry, right? And they're
Yeah.
As far as passengers,
I mean, and look at all the hoops and loops they've had to go through just to make. I mean, right now they're just going from Miami to Fort Lauderdale, or a little bit more north of Fort Lauderdale, right? And how many millions and billions of dollars they probably put into that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell they're really excited about it too because they're apparently already planning the track all the way to Tampa, even though they're still working through Martin County.
That'd be great. Now you go see a show in Tampa. Well, I mean, we don't have a stop, so it doesn't really do shit for us. But
Yeah, but we could drive down to Martin County, or we could drive there. were also saying that they wanted one in Brevard County. So the actual company itself was saying that. So.
Oh shit! Nice. Well, that's
well,
exciting.
Brevard's not bad.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's bad, but yeah, it's not bad to try too.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
Just kidding, Brevard fans. No, but yeah. So I mean, I think the rail, I'm in agreement with. I think it's pretty ridiculous for the group of people in Indian River County to be upset that's going to come through. I mean, what other route does that company have to get a line from West Palm to Orlando besides using the East Coast Railway track that we have already?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and like Nick said already, it's going to add opportunity in the fact that now if someone, if they do have a stop in Martin County and then Brevard County, it's not that much harder for you now to get a job maybe in Orlando if you live further down south, get on the train early in the morning, again, if it lines up correctly, have that job, work there, and come back to home.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something in Florida, again, most people I assume listening here are from Florida, but we're a long-ass state. And 95 is huge because it goes north to south. It's pretty close to the coast. But driving on it's not the best in the sense of, like, time management.
Yeah, and, like, getting into Orlando from the East Coast, you basically have, like, one road you can take.
Yeah.
So it gets pretty congested at the, peak hours and stuff. So being able to avoid that altogether would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
So do you guys think? I mean, you kind of touched on this book, but like, they're like trying to frame this as like a win, in the sense that like, okay, now they're getting $30 million in additional safety requirements for Brightline, but like, I know they framed it like, oh, that's all our concern the whole time was safety, but really they just didn't want the train.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they
didn't want it to happen. So
I mean,
like,
this whole safety angle gets used so often
Right.
nowadays. It seems like it's like all they it's all they use.
it's always for your best interest.
Right.
I love that though, because that like illustrates what's wrong with politics so beautifully.
Right.
It's like the whole point of this lawsuit was to stop them from coming through here altogether.
Right.
And they failed miserably. They spent a shit ton of tax money.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, like you said, they just kind of reframed the goalpost to be like, oh, see what we got? We got safety upgrades.
Yeah.
And so not only was their goal to avoid, having the train at all, but the original lawsuit filed with Martin County didn't have anything to do with safety. It was they were trying to block funding. So they were trying to block private activity bonds, millions of dollars in private activity bonds from being used on this project, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know how much they spent on that lawsuit too.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's probably a lot less, right?
But
Or
Go ahead.
I don't, so that lawsuit ended up going all the way to the district court, the U.S. district court, and it was struck down by them, or however you would phrase that. I don't know if it's called struck down, but and then so they failed at the district court level, and then the Supreme Court denied to hear that case. So it was pretty clearly about funding when it started, not about safety.
Right.
Right.
Because Brevard don't give a fuck about their people.
Yeah, of course.
Well, it's interesting because they say $30 million and new safety restrictions or whatever they have to put on crossings. They don't give you that. As far as the details, it's like stop signs and so forth or whatever. But then it goes, the article that I read, it goes into Vero Beach having to spend an additional $900,000 on 3 different streets that they're going to add, additional like roads and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like thinking to myself, this is like seems like such a strange thing. So you vouch for, you supposedly settled for $30 million to do these additional things, but now you're going to spend another $900,000 on top of the already $4 million that you spent suing these people. It just seems so like...
Oh, wait, the county's spending money now?
Yeah. So
then what was the point of fighting for the railroad company to...
Well, is it the county spending or the city spending? Because I think that might be a difference in.
Well, I mean, either way, if the railroad company was the one that settled to spend the $34 million in safety, build-up of these railroad crossings, why does the state now have it, or county, whatever, city, whatever it has to be? How did they end up spending more money now?
Yeah, I don't know. The only way I could see it would be, I'm not 100% sure, but so it's a county lawsuit. So Indian River County won that in a sense, right? They got that settlement, and I would assume that purse of money goes to them. So now they could be saying if the city, the stops in the city, they might not give that to the city, or not they won't give it to them, but maybe a certain amount they have to spend out of pocket for whatever reason. That's the only thing that I could think of where that $900,000 would come from.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't. I don't know, because there's that hierarchy in government right there.
What do you guys think about the whole? So I guess the argument came down to these high-speed trains are coming through. It creates a situation that's a little bit more dangerous than what we currently have with the freight trains coming through. And so they're basically, some of these safety features need to be put in place, but the argument was over who's going to pay for it. Is it the private company that's running the trains, or is it the county because they own the roads that is going to have to pay for it? So when it came down to it, that's kind of where the argument was. And I don't know. I don't really know.
The argument after they decided that they weren't going to win.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a interesting question, because I'm not really sure I know the answer to that, to be honest with you. You would think, as the company, it's their responsibility to keep their customers and their, the people using their service safe.
Yeah, and the people, I guess, living immediately adjacent to the railroad tracks and stuff like that.
Well, I guess you can kind of look at it too as so we're a private company, which is mainly these are private trains. We're going to go through I think it's probably the Florida Department of Transportation to use these railroads, right? I would assume that's where they're going through.
Yeah.
So now that we're renting these railroads, would we if you rent a house, would you spend money to make sure the house is safe, or would that be the landlord's responsibility to make sure that what you're renting from them? I don't know if I'm making sense, but
no, yeah, you make perfect sense. And
so I mean that's where my mind first went. So maybe that is what I would lean more towards is well, if the Florida government's going to say these are railroads, which they are, then you should probably make sure that if someone's going to rent them out and use higher speed trains on them, they should be safe.
Yeah.
Well, so my not really counter argument, but my counterpoint to that would be, so let's go back to the analogy of renting a house. So you rent a house. The house is a residential house, whatever, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, whatever the circumstance is. It's only, the house is designed for maybe a family of 4, right? To maybe a couple of kids, a family of 3 or 4. And then you rent the house and you're like, oh, I'm bringing 20 people. It's up to you, the landlord, to accommodate my 20-person family. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's kind of what you can extrapolate from the whole railroad situation. Sure, they're renting the railroad tracks from whoever it may be. You said Florida Department of Transportation. But were those railroad tracks ever designed for high-speed trains?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume probably not.
Right.
But again, so I think
if the last, yeah, never mind.
Yeah, but I mean, this probably comes down to where it really would be is if this was an actual free market, would be okay, let's meet in the middle, or wherever we'd agree the middle is, right? So you don't have to agree to rent me this if I'm bringing 20 people in, but if you are, we should probably split the bill somewhere to making sure everything's safe and up to code.
Right.
Quotes code.
Yeah, the other thing is a lot of these safety, they're at crossings. So, the road is government property. So, even if the rail was privately owned, it's these,
where does the railroad start?
Yeah, the barriers and stuff are roadway features designed to control the traffic, not control the train. So I don't know. If you're going to take jurisdiction over the road, then you almost have to design those features too. That's a pretty valid argument, I think. So,
well, yeah, because
I feel like
said,
they both have a point.
The barriers lie on the road, not necessarily the train track. Right.
Right.
That's also an interesting point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like this topic is just going to be us making a bunch of interesting points, and we're not going to come to any conclusion.
Good point. Good point.
But I don't know. I really don't know.
I think this is where like you get into like again free market area where this would be done between the two parties, and if they both agree on it, then that's perfectly fine, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the agreement is, even if like obviously whenever you agree to something or come to terms, you're not always gonna get what you want, but at the end, hopefully the outcome is what you want. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, there's always some sort of compromise between both parties, right?
This is how it should be.
Yep.
Because everybody's looking out for their own self-interest, and if they could, like we've seen a lot with crony capitalism, the companies don't want to do much or have to put out much for it, and vice versa with the government, they don't want to do the same thing, but hopefully compromise is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how this would play out in a world where there is no government in the sense of like regulatory shit like this. I guess how I maybe see it working out is the train comes in and does whatever they want to do, right? Whether they build additional safety features or not, they come in and they build their you need a lighter?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Right. They come through, they build their railroad, whether they add safety features or not. If it works out, it ends up working out, right? And if it's not safe, it's only a matter of time before somebody gets hurt, and then that company has to either step up and make the safety features, probably face some lawsuits.
Right.
And then I like to think that the market always answers to whatever the problem is.
Right.
Well, one thing's for sure is if we had railroads, private railroads actually laying track in the past 100 years, we'd have some more answers to these questions.
Yeah, that's also another really good point.
Yeah.
Well, you'd like to think that the private market would have, innovated as it typically does better than the government, and we'd have by now, like you said, 100 years later, we would have some sort of high-speed, safe, high-speed railroad that's made for these types of things. But the market has been so dominated by government entities that there's been no innovation.
Yeah. I mean I guess in a sense there has been with Brightline, because since now they're doing it, looking at some of the stuff, they've started construction in Orlando area already, so they've been tunneling underneath 528 I-4. Don't hold me to that exactly, but they've been tunneling underneath actual highways in Orlando without stopping traffic. It's like some new technology where they've
that's like Musk and the Boring Company.
Yeah,
They're
pretty
very
much. It's like a big
thing.
square,
Yeah.
and they just slowly that square pushes through underneath the highway, and it sets up the tunnel at the same time.
Huh.
So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, but it makes you, it begs the question: what if we were doing this 100 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously, we didn't have this, the technology we have 100 years ago, but I mean, there's no telling how much further ahead we could be in the railroad game if government kept their dirty little dick beaters out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if you guys looked at it. It's kind of a side thing with the railroad, but they're in a lot of talks with the Orlando area now, because as you mentioned earlier, the airport's in there, right? So they're actually going to have a stop in the airport, which is pretty sweet.
That's
That's
cool.
nice. Yeah, that's really
That's
nice.
That's a game changer.
If you're from Florida, and South Florida especially, you understand that completely. That's a huge upgrade for just general public and people coming down here. But even Disney's gotten involved now. I think
Disney.
Yeah.
Disney.
gotta love them. But
Fucking
because
pedophiles.
they've discontinued their Magic Express,
Someone had to say it.
which is their their bus system that's actually in the Disney bubble.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're a part of Disney hotels or
That's
Disney,
how they transport all the kids
Exactly.
to the ports.
Epstein's Island, I believe.
Yep.
But so that's how they usually do it. But now they've, for whatever reason, between COVID and things going on, I guess they can't spend the money to do that for free anymore. So they've cut ties with that company. So now they're trying to get the railroad company to come through Disney. But at the same time, the Orlando government is trying to get them to go through a little bit more north, so towards I-4 area. And what's that big road that's up there? I'm trying to remember, that Florida Eye's up there, or the Orlando
I-4?
Eye. International Drive.
Oh, yeah.
So it's trying to have a stop up in International Drive as well. So now the Brightline has got these two people trying to bid to where their Phase 2 line should go through.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I think for all things considered, this is pretty interesting for Florida. especially South Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
nothing's
Central.
going to save South Florida, though. Let's just be honest about what's going down there.
Yeah.
That's like a separate country.
That place is a shithole. It's not a separate country. It's a shithole.
That's why we don't live there. But
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, dude.
Yeah.
But that being said, driving down there, like on 95 when you get like towards Miami, may be the most dangerous thing that I ever do in my life.
There's
yeah.
so many things I'd rather do than drive. Like infinite. I can't stop naming things that
If
I'd
you
rather
get
do than
to,
drive
like,
in South
Fort
Florida.
Lauderdale, like people start losing their minds
Yeah.
on
Oh, yeah.
95, and they're like, "Where do you have to go?"
you're pretty much playing Need for Speed.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
insane.
They're just so pissed off that they have to live there that I'm convinced they're just constantly trying to kill themselves on
And
the
there's
road.
there's
believe
obstacles out there too. That whenever I went down there for the first time, some guy was swerving through traffic with a concrete mixer on the back, and, and it fell off,
no,
and it went rolling. Yeah, we were right next to him when it happened, and then traffic was
because
locked
they
up
drive
behind
insane.
us after that.
They're insane down there, bro.
Yeah,
mean-
Insane.
I think if you live down there, you probably just turn insane.
yeah.
Being on 95 down there is...
It's a lot of the same effect of living
It's
in
like
New
a
York
roller
City.
coaster.
Dude, I know.
Yeah.
When I was pulling my boat down there to go to the Keys, every time I was like, oh, I just got to get through this. I just got to get through this, you know?
Yeah, it's
like-
tough, man.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's bullshit getting through there.
Scary stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, in general, I guess we kind of, talked one through. It's pretty good. Indian River County spending money on trying to stop it,
Not so good.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
retarded.
It's kind of...
I think you can almost kind of, not that it's a topic that we really, had on the schedule, but you can almost segue this into the, how every year our county spends like $4 or $5 million to dump sand on the beach that just gets taken away within the year. It's like, how much more money are we going to spend dumping sand so people can shit on the beach from their, house?
Well, and in some ways, you could, I mean, this is maybe a stretch, but connected because, I mean, who didn't want this to happen, right?
The trains or...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people on the beach. People didn't want, the train, whatever. And so those people have so much pull because they have so much money.
Yeah, the county caters to them.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
especially the city, too. I mean, but
I'm sure besides them, probably only like I was saying earlier, the people right next to the rails might have a
Yeah.
problem. Like that's about all I
Restaurants
can
and
think about. Yeah,
businesses and stuff. But they have so much pull, so the city obviously caters to them,
one thing that's really interesting for me to think about from like a soil engineering perspective is how much different is the effects on the ground going to be from a train going 110 miles an hour through here compared to a train that was going, I don't know, how fast do those freight trains go?
I think
Like
they go
60?
like
40 to 60?
Yeah, yeah. Through town, they don't. I've never seen one go really faster than 45.
Yeah. So I'm just curious to look into how those different types of vibrations are going to affect the existing soils and some of the existing structures around the track.
That too, and I wonder about the sound,
Yeah.
because I mean, I mean, we don't live right now. We're not particularly close to the train.
We're what? Maybe 2 miles?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess that's kind of close, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't bother me. But it does bother a lot of people. The noise
Mm-hmm.
of it. So I'm interested to see
Yeah.
how loud it's going to be. I mean, there is an argument, not necessarily wanting this thing,
Yeah.
especially if you can't use it, right?
Mhm.
So
Well,
there is that argument, but I guess the point is, was it worth going through the hassle of trying to sue them and wasting taxpayer dollars and then shaping it like it was a win, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that it was necessarily a win,
Yeah.
So I could be wrong, but I remember vaguely. So I'm probably wrong, but I remember when this first started breaking news around here that this high-speed train was, planning to make its way through here. I remember the county selling it to people that they weren't going to make a stop here, and there was no way that they were going to make a stop here, and that was their initial, I guess, push to oppose it. Whereas if they sold it as, hey, this train's coming through here, if we put our money into it, maybe we could get a stop here, and it can actually be useful to the county and bring some money in here. I feel like it would have had a drastically different course of action in regards to the lawsuit and people
Right.
for or against it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
We'll
you
never
know,
know.
it sucks because it's, you know, politics shapes a lot of this stuff. So, you know, people want to get elected, they're going to go with what the people in their county
Yeah,
want.
giving
So,
backdoor hand jobs and rubbies and
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because, like, in a sense, right, this is politics, but it does stem from a point where their constituents are saying, even if it's not a majority, it's the loud minority and the rich minority who are saying, hey, we don't want this because we don't want change, which,
Right.
if you're from a small town that's somewhat nice, I'm sure it's similar to our town where it's, you know, the people who have been here or the people who have money don't want it to change too much because they like it how it is.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate because it is nice, so it is going to change. So fighting
Yeah.
against it is just going to be futile in a sense.
Seems like a lot of the major change that's happened in Indian River County over the past few decades is that a lot of the bigger businesses that have existed here have left.
Yeah.
So I guess I mean that's kind of, you know, seems like kind of the track that they're going down. Not to make a train,
No, it's
no pun intended, but yeah, it's just you know, we've seen a bunch of big businesses leave, and it stuff like this where you're preventing, you know, labor from making its way into your area, and like you were saying, people from, you know, up to an hour away could comfortably take the train and go to work somewhere, you know, that far away. So
yeah. And if anybody's listening is like, well, it's only an hour drive. Yeah, it is. But like, if you think you got to drive there 5 days a week, you know, say 350 days a year, that's a toll on your car.
big
Whereas
time.
if
and
you
also if you want to talk about safety,
yeah, exactly.
trains are a lot safer than cars. So
But that's something that cracked me up when, you know, you sent out your little reading list for the week and I started looking into this. I came across a video. I think it was like, I guess it was one of the ones, you know, one of the local news outlets, but they were selling it as like a safety thing. And,
for the train.
yeah. And one of her main points was that Florida is above the national average rate of severe injury or death for fatalities. But when you pull up the list, we're actually like smack dab in the middle. And we're the third most populated state in the country. It's
Right.
like, are we like, yeah, sure, maybe we're above the average, but you're also averaging us against, you know, places like,
North Dakota.
yeah, that have like 200 people in the entire state.
Right.
So it's like, sure, we're above the average, but we're also the third most populated state in the country, and we're still. I think we were 21st or 22nd. I have a hard time counting. So
And
Yeah.
two, like, I mean, not that drunk homeless people don't matter, but like,
yeah,
that's who gets hit by trains.
no, you're right. You're right.
I mean, really, I mean,
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, a
that or,
majority.
like somebody who's like, I can't wait. You
yeah,
know, and you're like,
well, that's it.
you
A
should've
majority
waited.
of them are vehicles, like by a percentage base. Most of
Really?
them are vehicles,
trying
but
to do like ridiculous stuff.
yeah,
Like, you just stop. Just
Yeah.
stop.
just
It's
stop.
not that long.
Yeah,
Just wait a couple
that
minutes.
train is not going to feel you.
Enjoy the graffiti on the side of it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Don't try to do it.
I don't
there
know.
is some beautiful graffiti on those trains.
There is. You got to appreciate that.
Every now and then, you just got to see that train track coming down slowly, and you just got to put it in second gear and just remember, be fast like family, dude. Fast and Furious.
Another kind of silly thing, a point I wanted to make was they were talking about another driving factor for them being opposed to this was that it was going to increase traffic.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the train, like once a day, I think it's at like 6 o'clock. It goes through town. It stops. It stops at one point because I guess there's a crossing. Have you ever been stuck behind the train when it does that?
Yeah,
it goes
so-
like
It's
5 miles an
literally
hour.
going like 3 miles an hour for like half
Yeah.
an hour.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what about that traffic?
Yeah. Whereas a high speed train would just be like, you know, snap your fingers, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you just gotta stop for probably like 30 seconds, realistically.
Yeah. About, hey, that's enough time for a quickie for me.
That's
you know?
about a red light interval.
Yeah.
Like a normal red light interval.
Right.
The
I
one-
mean, versus the train we have going on now, which,
Yeah.
like you said, a lot of times it's really slow.
Yeah.
Once you see it, you're just really hoping it's a slow day at the sand factory. or gravel, whatever they.
Yeah.
We actually have a CMEX factory here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we do. Right on. The hell's that road that connects US 1
Yeah,
to
53rd.
53rd. Yeah, there's a CMEX plant right there.
Yeah, and right across from it, there's a Titan Concrete.
Yep.
as
And
well.
a Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh yeah, and a Publix, and a
That's
So,
Yeah, well, I guess not much else to say about that, really.
Yeah.
yeah, we beat the hell out of that one.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll be alive when that train connects to Tampa because that'll be pretty awesome. So
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah,
excited for it.
yeah. We had some pretty low key topics this week, guys.
I don't know. I feel like this next one's kind of.
Yeah. Well, this one's good.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I felt like this one was going to take a lot longer.
yeah.
Anyway, so moving on. So, is this I know it's a statewide thing, so obviously it involves DeSantis, but was he like the birther of this?
I would assume. I mean, the way everything the news looked, he was kind of heading it up as the man.
As
You
far
know.
as states, because Donald Trump did do something similar at like federal federal schools
he
or
did
something.
a couple years ago.
I think
Yeah.
his was more of like
Oh,
I want this to be done
Yeah,
in a sense.
I think he. It must have been at like Department of Education level or something like that. Where
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should introduce it so people know what the hell
Oh.
we're talking about.
This topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People
All
are
right,
like,
yeah,
what are we
so-
talking about?
Yeah. So next topic here, we're going to go into Florida's new amendment of a law for Florida Department of Education. This is
I have the excerpt up.
Oh, you got it?
The
All right,
important
go ahead.
excerpt. Yeah, so instruction on the required topics must be factual and objective and may not suppress or distort significant historical events, such as the Holocaust, slavery, the Civil War and Reconstruction, the Civil Rights Movement, and the contributions of women, African American, and Hispanic people to our country, as already provided in section whatever, examples of theories that distort historical events and are inconsistent with state board approved standards include the denial or minimization of the Holocaust and the teaching of critical race theory, meaning the theory that racism is not merely the product of prejudice, but that racism is embedded in American society and its legal systems in order to uphold the supremacy of white persons. Instruction may not utilize material from the 1619 Project and may not define American history as something other than the creation of a few nations based largely on universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence. Instruction must include the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the subsequent amendments. So pretty self-explanatory. There's not really any room for interpretation, I feel like. You know what, my only kind of problem with it is, one, it's kind of authoritarian.
Mhm.
You know, and you can argue whatever you want about the nature of the motivation, I guess, behind the bill, but it just seems kind of eerily authoritarian, which, you know, we as anarchists and libertarians are always against. But it's kind of vaguely written at the same time. So one of the examples I found while reading was when you teach slavery as a teacher, how do you convey it as the bill's written now? How do you convey, like, would saying, because obviously it wasn't just a couple prejudiced guys that kept racism alive in the country. There obviously was a little bit of, you know, air quotes, embedded racism for it to continue as it did. So would that fall under the criteria for being considered critical race theory?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, how would that affect that course of teaching? I'm not saying that that's what it will do, and I'm not saying, you know, that the country is or was racist. I'm just implying that it could affect, you know, factual, objectively true curriculum as it's written, at least.
Like anything, the more government adds to something with more laws, you know, mainly with more laws, it becomes, you know, especially in this instance where we're talking about what teachers can teach, you know, now they have to think twice, thrice about what they're going to say so they don't go against it. You know, just like if you're driving down the road, the more laws they put for drivers, you know, again, I think there's like a statistic out there somewhere where like you can drive 2 miles and you probably break 3 laws. So like
I can't drive 50 feet without breaking some fucking street laws.
So I mean, this
outlaw.
is another thing where it just kind of adds more to like the teachers having to think about things.
Yeah, tiptoe around subjects.
Right.
So again, this is about, just so we're clear for the listeners, this is about critical race theory. Even though they've added a couple other, you know, things in there to that law, this is straight up just Florida Republicans, mainly, you know, Desantis going at critical race theory, as Nick stated in the beginning of the podcast, is very popular right now through Republican run states. And as Chris said, you know, was kind of a thing that Trump wanted to do a couple years ago as well.
Kind of nod, wink, wink kind
Yeah.
of deal.
You know, he implemented something, right? I don't know.
Oh, look. Jamie, look it up.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
the numbers.
Fingers. Now, yeah, so again, this is something where, and again, a lot of what we talked about lately, a couple of past episodes, has been DeSantis. I think it's actually election year, either this year or next year. And if you know anything about politics or just in general,
Is this the one where they're going to reinstate Trump?
yeah, most politicians are only worried about quote unquote politics for about 40% of their time. The other 60% is re-election. So a lot of this, what he's passing right now,
Vote for me.
has been a lot of like wave flagging, get his base ready to
Flexing.
vote him in again.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
I didn't think about that.
Dude, I mean, it's very obvious.
Yeah, I mean he's been on a roll.
Yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by Bubba's Embrace. Fresh out of prison? Missing that warm and cozy, homey feel? Or more importantly, the sweet caress and touch of your homies at shower time? It's no secret that America is leading the world in incarcerations, and that also the number of rehabilitated people trying to regenerate into society, which is hard enough. Already without the stress of knowing you'll never feel Bubba's hands caress your shoulders as you accidentally drop your soap bar for the 17th time. Bubba's Embrace has answered this very familiar and very real problem with that many Americans face. With a series of pulleys, lever arms, and hinges, Bubba's Embrace has found a very unique way to create the sensation of Raphael phallus jabbing your sweet chocolate starfish. Oh my god. Bubba's Embrace has made setup a breeze by utilizing suction cups to fasten the apparatus to the shower wall, as well as making it collapse for those long, lonely trips away from home. The user puts a small harness before entering the shower, and by implementing accelerometers into Bubba's Embrace can detect when the user drops the soap and bends over. At which point the phallus arm will begin penetrating you. Bubba has made this product extremely user-friendly and customizable with a removable phallus arm and adjustable speed and sensation to really dial in the settings to replicate your favorite prison husband appendage. If that wasn't enough to send you over the moon, the harness has a pressure applicator that can replicate Keith's hand wrapped around your shoulder, no matter how soft or how hard. Bubba's Embrace is offering 20% off for Politics on the Rock listeners. And let me tell you, I haven't been to prison, and I use this every time I'm in the shower. I can't get enough of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with all this rah Republican shit.
Now, so like, I guess if we just want to focus more on like what we think about the law going in place, it is very authoritarian, I believe, and like I think Nick Steve did as well. I think any time that you dictate what someone can teach or even say in general, even again, we're talking about publicly run schools, so this is what you get for doing this.
Yep.
Right.
But it is a very weird state you put people in, and even if like you don't agree with what people might be saying, I think that comes back to you as a parent to actually be involved with your children when they're at school, either either government run or privately run, see what's going on, so you can actually have a say in how they're raised. I get on the soapbox here real fast. I'm not a parent, but I do feel a lot of people these days, you know, it's been going on for probably about 20 years or so, because, again, Department of Education's not that old. People kind of send their kids to schools, public schools, even private, as a daycare system, K through 12, where it's, here's this place I can drop you off, I pick you up again, or I see you again around 4 or 5. I have 3 to 5 hours with you that at night, where there has been this disconnect now where, for better or for worse, and I think most of us agree for worse, the government is kind of raising our children. And again, a lot of time this is, again, personal, or these are actually people, teachers. Some are good, some are bad. But, you know, I think parents do need, you know, again, not to shame anybody who's not doing it, but step up in the sense of where if you're not liking what people are, or what your children are being taught, you know, teach them differently, right? I know a lot of things my teacher said back in elementary, middle school, and high school, I don't believe just because they said it. Not because my parents said anything, which they might have, but because I, as a person, have my own opinions on things, what I've seen through life.
Yeah. So I don't like to, and we're all pretty good about this. I don't like talking about these topics or problems without having some sort of solution. And obviously, you know, libertarians and anarchists typically have pretty good liberty-minded, you know, freedom of choice kind of deal when it comes to solutions. I just don't see why. Well, I mean, I know why. It's because, like you were just saying, re-elections are coming up, and he's trying to rah-rah his base. But it's like, why not spend more of this energy on freeing up some of the choices for people to make in regards to where and how people get to spend the money that they put into the tax system? Why are we so focused on one system of schooling? Why not give parents and kids the choice rather than, you know, just preferably beating a dead horse?
Yeah.
So you bring up kind of like in a sense, a voucher system?
Yeah. Wait, what?
Like voucher? Is that what you're talking about? I mean, it's one of the
things
I've said.
Yeah, actually, there's, I want to say it was a Midwest state. I'll look it up here when I'm not talking because I can't talk and type. But there's this movement going through the country, and maybe you guys have seen it, where people are pushing for. So right now, as it stands, the tax money follows the schools, not the students.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these states are pushing for that money to go to follow the students rather than the school. So much like like a health savings account, for instance.
Right.
So instead of that money going to the school, it sticks with the student, and then the student, the parent, obviously at the end of the day, has the choice to spend that money wherever they want. And I think that's a way better. If we're gonna, you know, continue using these tax systems, I think that's a way better option than funding these schools. 'Cause you see it all the time. These schools, they're, you know, a lot of them are unionized, and they're held to really no, like, they have standards, but how many times you see schools are doing horribly and they continue receiving funding?
Mm-hmm.
One thing I thought was funny when I was looking through a couple articles about this was the Florida Education Association. I guess they took great offense to this bill because it implied that, you know, they would ever try to indoctrinate children. And that doesn't happen, they said.
We would never do that.
Yeah. We would never use our power of authority to put that on the children and make them think what we think is right or wrong.
Right.
And so like,
because we haven't been doing that the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. So
you guys ever see, like, sorry, just like, and I always feel really kind of bad when I see it, like, you know, two parents walking down the street with their kid, and the kid's wearing a mask, and they're like outside, you know, the parents aren't wearing a mask, but the kid is, and it's just like, you know, that's what they were taught at school.
Yeah,
so.
I don't care. I'm going to say it. If you put your kid in a mask, you're a dickhead.
I don't think they did. I think the kid chose to do it voluntarily.
Well, that kid's a dickhead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Burn him.
He's a witch. Burn him.
That's what I was trying to get you to say.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back, and we kind of touched on this because we've already talked about like the school system and as libertarians and anarchists looking at things from like whether or not we even agree with public education and why it has so many problems. And it's always the appeal is always, oh, we need more money, we need more funding, then we could be better, and then you give them more funding and they're still terrible.
It's still, oh, we need more money.
Yeah, so it's just a bad system altogether, right? And so to play a little bit of the devil's advocate on this, you know, the Republican and, I don't know, conservative way of looking at this is like, critical race theory will cause our kids to feel badly about themselves, right? Because it's based on like systematic racism, right? Like that racism isn't just something that has happened in the past, but it's still happening, but from like a cultural, societal, employment, different avenues of like our society, right? And it's still happening in some ways, you know what I'm saying?
And it's bad for going both ways too, because like, you know, the white kids are being told that they're oppressors and they're descendants of oppressors, and then the minority kids are being told that they're victims, and that, you know,
right,
and that nothing they can do,
and that everyone hates them,
right, and that nothing they can do will get them out of this situation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's in their mind, it's like, well, why the fuck? What's the point of even trying?
Yeah,
and maybe that's not the reality, but in my mind,
no.
But I can't say that because I'm not black. So
no, I mean, none of us are black. This is a very white table. Even the table's white.
So does that mean we're?
I mean, around a white guy.
Well, I did say before we went on air, I did say I wanted to get a black tablecloth.
You did say that.
I did.
That is true.
That's going to be our token for the show.
Oh Lord, that's as best
and we're demonetized.
No, but I mean that's the argument, right? And Chris brought up the other side of it, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know how in depth we want to go on this part of it, but
go deep, Daddy.
No, but I mean, does some systematic racism exist? Does it not? I mean, I don't know that we necessarily want to go there with all this, but it just goes back to the point you guys made, episode 2 or whatever, where we were talking about public schooling and not really having an option. They have the option, right? I mean, you could say leave it up to what the teacher wants to do, but he or she is still on a curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're told what they have to do. There's, what they have to take certain tests to pass certain classes. They're forced to be there. Like, there's a lot of parts of public education that, like, it is so difficult as a libertarian to get behind. You know what I'm saying? Because
all of it.
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many different pieces of this that are just like, no, don't agree with that. You know what I'm saying? And it kind of, you know, I mean, just to name a few of them, okay? Like the fact that the curriculum is based on like one type of child. Right?
Yeah, that's my biggest problem.
If you're the type of child that doesn't take tests well, or don't do this well, or whatever, it doesn't matter because it's based on one curriculum.
Yeah, I think the fact that every student, and this isn't really explicit to just public school. I mean, you see this all the way up through academia. Everybody is expected to learn something at the same pace, which I think is just fucking bonkers. I think that's ridiculous. You don't even see that in the workplace.
Yeah.
Most jobs have kind of an open-ended training approach. It's like, well, we're going to, teach you what you need to know, and however long that takes, that's how long it takes. I mean, with exception, obviously. If you have somebody that just can't fucking figure it out,
right,
you're not going to keep them. But the fact that we expect kids to learn things at the same exact pace as each other is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, there's so many.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue if you.
No. I mean, that's all we're saying. I mean, there's a lot of different things. There's no innovation because it's completely public. It's ran by the government. There's no different. You're not trying different things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's so many different pieces of this, right?
Yeah, I just want to remind you, the same people that run the DMV also run your kid's school.
Right.
Think about that.
One of the things you said at the beginning of what you just said was talking about the funding, like how they're always just like, oh, these kids are failing, like we just need more funding. That's always the solution.
Always.
And you look at that, you know, that graph of funding versus student performance. Student performance is pretty much just, you know, a plateau line. If anything, it's gone down. And, I mean, considering a bunch of the standards has deteriorated, so, you know, realistically, if you're performing the same, but the standards are lower, you're doing worse, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at that funding bar, it's like a freaking skyrocket, like just a vertical bar, since like the 70s. So, you know, if you really still believe that more funding is going to fix the problem, then, you know, probably
You're
not
lost
paying
cause.
Yeah, because we know what would fix the problem.
Doing away
Not
with
being
it?
ran by the government. I mean, realistically, right? So on its face, it's like, I mean, you could argue whether or not you were adding more restrictions to the teacher or whatever, but it's all public, man. It's all ran by the government. They're the one that dictates how it's going to be, you know. And it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Do we now, just to kind of like go maybe not deeper, but just kind of touch on something again. So say like they didn't put this law in where you know, they said no critical race theory, and you know, obviously add a couple other things there. Say it wasn't a curriculum for schools going over the next couple of years. So they did put critical race theory in. Do we think that would make a huge impact on the children coming out of there?
I mean, I think so.
Just a little thought experiment, I guess.
In regards to what metric are we using to measure that?
I guess the best one would just be in the sense of like worst case scenario, what Republicans are saying right now, where kids are going to hate themselves if they're white, and even if they're a minority, they're going to think there's nothing I can do in a sense, or you know, I have to kind of burn everything down.
Mm-hmm.
I think from a grade standpoint, I don't think you're going to see much of a difference, really. I do think that you will see more degradation of morals and, you know, a lot of the things that Americans pride themselves on.
Just more like, you know, it's like we've talked about before, just polarization, just people getting pulled apart and, you know, made to believe that they're like natural enemies.
Right.
Yeah.
I have an idea on this. Do you have another cigar?
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
I'm gonna go for another one.
Do you want my third cigarillo?
No, you look like
Those look like
Are you on your second one?
Those look like something I should be smoking on the corner of
I was about to say,
60th
every time I look
58th.
at him, he looks like a homeless guy. He's like smoking a stick, you
I
know?
look like I'm smoking
All right.
a witch's finger.
Cam, what do you want? Alec Bradley Reserve Nicaragua or the Alec Bradley Max Black? Hey, that's a pretty fitting. If you don't smoke it, I'm going to smoke this one.
Yeah,
I'm
you can
definitely
have
doing two.
you can have the Max Black. I'm not.
Whoa, dude.
Not. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if I can handle all that.
What are you saying?
Give me that one.
All right. Here.
All right. Yeah. So okay. My opinion on your question was because it's a preventative bill in the sense that like it's like we're saying that you can't do this. So say you don't sign this bill, what's going to happen is you're going to have more conservative Republican towns doing what they're already doing, right? And then you're going to have more liberal South Florida, different places like that, who are going to maybe implement it because there's nothing saying that you have to do it, right? But so what's going to happen is the more liberal, left-leaning places are going to implement maybe CRT, and the conservatives aren't. So you're just going to have, I think, probably more. You know what I'm saying?
Like Chris just said, more polarization.
Yeah, but it's like it's not going to affect Vero Beach in the sense that they're not going to start teaching that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in a sense, wouldn't that happen if public schools weren't public and they were private? Because then they would be more taught in the sense of their community.
Yeah, but you'd have the choice.
Well, no, correct. But I'm just saying, in general, though, the more left-leaning places, again, if this was more of a liberty-minded place, they'd probably move in that direction in a sense of learning they teach us more things where more Republican side places would teach less critical race theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd see a huge split. And something interesting that I just now thought of. Think about it. When somebody goes to move somewhere, specifically speaking, somebody with family, kids, what's like one of the number one things that they look into when they're moving? You always hear people say when they're like, "Oh, I want to, we're looking at this area because it has good schools, right?"
I think it's even in most realtor and like, whatever.
It's like on not TripAdvisor, the wherever the realtor websites are.
It's like one of their metrics they use.
Right. And then they have like full profiles on the schools on there too. I was looking through a couple for, schools around our area, just out of curiosity. See what
did it say about our schools?
See what people were like crap talking about the teachers and stuff. It was actually kind of entertaining. But I mainly looked for Storm Grove Middle School because it's pretty near where I live. And there was not great reviews on that one.
Really? That surprises me. Well, I guess I don't. I was going to say that surprises me because a lot of teachers I had are there now, which explains a lot about me.
No, only thing I was trying to say was, again, like I agree in the sense that, probably adding more split in the sense of like, if that would happen with teaching critical race theory is not a good thing. But if government didn't run our schools, the eventuality that this being taught in more left-leaning places would probably happen regardless.
Yeah,
for sure.
But if you were, but what you add to that, right, is if you were in South Florida and there were private schooling as an option where you're not being taxed for public schooling, if you don't agree with this and you don't agree with whatever transgender thing that's going to come up or whatever, you just send your kid to a different school.
Yeah.
Right? So now you still have the choice.
No, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. But I'm saying now, you wouldn't have that choice. Right?
As it stands now.
As it stands now.
And again, this kind of circles back to the whole point of not having your government run your schools, because then you don't have choice.
Yeah.
Well,
or as much choice.
You can literally, I think the greatest argument is that, well, other than the fact that public schooling is terrible and it has done a horrible job, but like every kid is not the same. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And he may need something different. He may need to take a sabbatical and work or whatever. It's something, it's just this, when you start talking about education and the government forcing you to send your kid to school, and if he doesn't, you go to jail and he goes to break rocks or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just an interesting.
Yeah, Kamala Harris started knocking on your door and threatening to throw you in jail.
Yeah, right.
It'd be funny if she actually knocked on your door.
She'd bring a cookie that looks like her, though.
She's scary looking, dude.
Yeah,
when she smiles and laughs, like I just see like
cackle?
a demon, like I don't know. I'm expecting like horns to sprout out of her fucking forehead or something.
Yeah. Did you guys want to get into CRT at all? I mean, I know we mainly talked about the law and kind of the effect it would have, but
in regards to like what we think about it,
just generally, yeah. I mean,
yeah, sure.
You don't have to,
what
but
it is, what we think it is, what we, what it might not be,
what it could be.
Yeah, let's get into it. I don't know
because I think a lot of the criticisms I see coming from the left is that most of these Republicans don't really know what CRT is.
Which actually might be true. But
I feel like that's probably true.
Yeah, Republicans are pretty stupid.
Seems believable.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, we don't want that if that's what you're pushing.
Yeah.
I think anytime...
Has the word race in it?
I think anytime Republicans and Democrats say the other side doesn't know what the other side wants, is probably 100% true. Like that's
and everything that I've read, it said what you just said, Chris, is that excuse me. They don't fully grasp the idea of it. You know what I'm saying? They just
because that absolutely excellent and extremely effective two-party system we have is just really, really good at listening to each other and trying to work together to
Yeah.
Well, it does when it comes to killing people in the Middle East. And
Shoot.
Keep going. Keep going.
Keep going. Let's go.
Keep rolling.
enslaving private citizens on our domestic, know,
Okay.
areas
Okay. Keep going.
And we have another guest that just entered the chat, Woke Bookie. Or Based Bookie, not
Yeah.
Woke.
Base bookie.
Based Bookie, BB.
Hey, it's true. We can all get behind that.
Right? They're all at each other's throats.
Isn't that interesting, though? I mean, that is literally the thing they agree on.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Oh, but not when they're debating each other.
yeah.
Right.
When they're debating each other, they both want it to end, but when they get in office, they don't do fuck all to end it. They do things to accelerate it.
When those mics are off and the cameras are off, they look at each other like, whew. Can't wait till that next missile strike, huh, guys?
They rip those masks off and they're like, how about Syria, huh?
Yeah, they expose their lizard faces and they start talking with their tongues. Right? And their fucking eyes that close sideways. They just start making these weird, like, clicking sounds.
Yeah.
Like the Alien. Or is it Predator that makes the crazy sounds?
I don't know. Let's just say it's alien.
Alien. I think it's Alien, yeah.
No,
All right, so I have a Britannica. What is this? Critical race theory, introduction, and quick facts. I'm not going to read all this, but critical race theory is the intellectual movement and loosely organized framework of legal analysis based on the premise that race is not a natural, biologically grounded feature of physically distinct subgroups of human beings, but a socially constructed, culturally invented category that is used to oppress and exploit people of color. Critical race theorists hold that the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans. So I don't know if that's the official definition, but
No, I feel like that's pretty good.
I think that's like the general.
That's a gist.
yeah.
general gist of it.
Wow. It was officially organized in 1989.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been
a while.
around.
That surprised me. I would not have guessed that. So just the first sentence, well, it's the second sentence maybe. No, it's the first sentence. Is that race is not a natural race? Wait. So yeah, it's basically saying that racism is not natural. But I mean, looking outside of humans, don't most other species on the planet not really care for other species? Is that it? Is that the same argument? I'm just spitballing.
No, in some sense, I guess.
Right. And there was I'll have to look it up because I want to be able to quote this. I got shit for the last episode mentioning something and not being able to quote it. But they did a study where I'm assuming to prove, something along the same lines as critical race theory. They took children and they exposed them to, a bunch of other people of different races, and they observed how the kid reacted to the people they were exposed to, based on race. So they took, a white kid, and they, had him with a black guy, and they seen how he acted, and they with a Mexican, and with another white guy,
Right.
and overwhelmingly, the kids were more apt to be more welcoming to people
They look like them.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so the conclusion they drew was that,
Kids are racist.
yeah, basically. But the only problem with their study, and they didn't really disclose this initially, was that they only did it with white kids. Yeah. So they tried drawing the conclusion that I got to look it up because
No,
I sound like an idiot
that's
explaining this.
So, I think one thing to mention, just so it's out there, so critical race theory does stem from a Marxist and postmodernism stance. I think there's like 3 or 4 people who kind of put together the theory of critical race, and they were proponents of those things.
Right.
So
yeah, and I think that's one of the big, things that really gets conservatives riled up about this specific thing is that, it's first of all something that's being pushed on children,
Right.
and it's the majority of the people who subscribe to it, call themselves Marxists, and so that's definitely a big factor in why there's such a hard push against it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it makes them a pariah to those people. I also think a good thing to kind of bring up is with most things, if you're trying to make it, not even you're trying to, but like with most things, there's a truth to it, right?
Right.
So I think like what you can distill critical race theory down to is they're not worried about the racist, wearing the white hoods going around who think white supremacy is what they need. They're more worried about the people who don't think about it, who say they're colorblind, but who live off, I guess, I don't know if I'm using the wrong word, but white privilege, right?
Right.
So people who have been benefited from the systemic racism and who have been grandfathered in because of their race to do better than minorities. So it's one of those things where they're in a state now where... Okay, Nick, you got it?
Yeah, so I really fucked up the the study. It was the doll study. You guys might be familiar with it.
Yes.
They basically took kids, and exposed them to different dolls, and they were kids of their own color were more likely to pick up the doll that was their color. That was the conclusion they made anyway, but then they found out years later that an overwhelming majority of the test subjects were white kids. So then they used that study to say that naturally white people are racist. And they didn't bother elaborating that they didn't use, or that they used way more white kids than they did any other kids. And it was like, well, yeah, no shit. They're going to pick up the doll that they're most familiar with, which is, the people they see most often, which is their family.
I think most people have heard about that study. If you take like Psych 101, I think it's in there a lot.
Yeah. But nobody, bothers mentioning the fact that it was mostly white kids.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so just jump on to what I'm saying is, so there is some truth in the fact that critical race theory does kind of hone more onto systemic racism.
Right.
Not that I would completely believe that if you look at everything in America, it's systemically racist, but in our past, it has been in some places, right? Mm-hmm. So there is truth to that, where it gives them the ability to then make those arguments, make those objective truths, which gives them a little bit more place to stand on. So I think if you're gonna disagree with it, which I think in most senses I do, you at least have to acknowledge the fact that yes, there is truth that systemically or in the past, and maybe even now, maybe not, there's not like laws that specifically say things, but there's people who uphold those laws who may interpret it in a way that you would not like based on your race.
And not to cut you off, but that was kind of the point I was making when we were talking, when we first started getting on this subject of how the bill, as it's written, you could almost use it against teaching what you're talking about.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Slavery in the past and how...
Well, it's not even like slavery. It's like, what, am I using the right term? Jerry-rigging? Where they kind of cut up the voting areas of states or like the location.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I don't remember exactly how it works,
again,
but yeah.
We're not experts in that at all. But there are things done in the past that the government's done, which has been super sketchy based on minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I mean, you have Jim Crow laws that were enforced until like 1965. So I mean, that's only like 55 years or whatever.
Yeah. So
I mean, yeah, you can't say that there's not racist people, and certainly not racist people in power, and also too, I mean, like
our president, the architect of the
dude. Poor people are almost as smart as white people.
Okay? Oh my god. Or how about him? What was it just a couple weeks ago? He said that black people don't know how to use computers.
Yeah.
Or can't get on email or whatever.
These are direct quotes from our president. Wait, not Donald Trump. It's Biden.
Yeah. Oh, what? Is that right?
Yep.
Read your notes. Are you sure that's right?
Well, at least he's not a rich white guy, Oh, wait.
Can we just I know we talked about this. I think it was in episode 2, but I still can't get over the fact that Kamala Harris successfully fucked her way to the top.
Hey man, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, what pisses me off though is when people, right? Yeah, she's a horrible person. But what pisses me off the most is when people use her as a role model for their children.
Oof.
Specifically, little girls. It's like, is that really what you want your daughter to be like?
Yeah, I mean,
to say out of one side of the mouth that or not say, but to arrest however many thousands of people for smoking pot and then laugh about it when she was asked if she's ever smoked pot.
Yeah. Yeah, she's worth a couple episodes probably at one point.
She's worth the death penalty.
Yeah. I think we could all agree to that.
I'm probably going to have to edit that out or else we're going to be on a watch list.
I mean, it's...
Let's face it, we're all on a watch list already.
This is all jokes, guys. We're an entertainment podcast.
Yeah, jokes, yep. Mm-hmm. That's what it is, jokes.
Here to entertain you.
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, going back to what you guys were saying, like, there's definitely been, you know, throughout American history, obviously policies that were directed at the minority communities, including gun laws.
The birth of them they were based in racism.
Right. Another one that you might be able to look up, I'm not sure if I know the definition 100%, was redlining, I think it was called. I do that in my truck every day. I believe those were policies where certain neighborhoods were basically closed off to minorities.
In the United States and Canada, redlining is the systematic denial of various services to residents of specific, often racially associated neighborhoods or communities, either explicitly or through selective raising of prices. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, you know, and as they say, it was, you know, sometimes racially based, other times it probably wasn't.
Depends on what state you're in.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's probably like
class-based and
way of exerting force, if anything. You know, convince people to do what you want them to do, like, or you can't get water.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a place where I would probably staunchly disagree with critical race theory is the fact that they go back and don't look at people on their character, but then it just looks at people based on their skin color and race.
That kind of sounds racist.
Yeah.
And the whole premise was, like, according to what we just read there, the whole premise was that race doesn't actually exist. Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it seems a little odd. But I guess their argument is race doesn't really exist, but society views it that way, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the white people have been in power for so long, and because of that now, systemically, they've been given these extra advantages in life based on the race, even though they don't believe in race.
Right.
Well, that's like, Mayor Lori Lightfoot saying that she's only going to take interviews with white or black journalists.
Right.
Did you see that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Fucking Beetlejuice looking bitch.
Yeah, and it seems odd that you can say something like that, you know?
Right.
Well, we're the oppressors, Chris.
No, I mean, really, that's
And your
racist.
your political career doesn't just end immediately.
Well, yeah, if you're a Democrat, you can do and say whatever you want.
And I think from our viewpoint, I don't want to speak for you guys, but like somebody saying something like that, the only reason why we kind of get weird about it is because we know if it was said vice versa, it'd be super like
Right,
frowned
unacceptable.
upon and like almost cut off immediately.
You'd have every single person on the left and right calling for your
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure,
But-
man.
I mean, I don't want to derail us too much, but I would agree. Most of us being anarchists and libertarian, we do believe in discrimination, right?
Ooh,
Yeah.
not
Yes, we do.
necessarily in that sense, but yes.
Yeah.
Wait,
Well, I guess.
are we gonna go? If we're gonna
Yeah,
go
fuck it. Let's go.
All right.
If,
Oh,
I
geez.
mean,
If we're gonna get kicked off, let's just get kicked
Yeah.
off tonight.
Well, it's,
so we don't believe in discrimination in that regard.
We don't believe
we
it's
believe
right.
in discrimination.
We don't believe in it. We don't believe it's right, but we believe in the fact that you have the
Right to do it.
right to do it.
Right, the same way that everyone says, like, oh, you know, like when Twitter was banning President Trump off and banning anybody who was saying that hydroxychloroquine was a potential treatment for the coronavirus. Fast forward it is. But, and everyone was saying, oh, they're a private company. They can do whatever they want. Well, if we're going to use that argument, then it has to apply across the board.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Whether,
It's,
I mean, it's a bad business decision to say, hey, we're not serving black people, but
Yeah.
if you're truly in a free market economy and you're truly a privately owned company,
Right.
you can serve and provide a service to whoever you want and
So,
whoever you don't want.
This is actually something I was thinking
Again,
about.
not to cut you off, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we don't agree you should do that as a business. You just should discriminate against
Right.
black
Well,
people.
no, let me go. I'm going to go into that.
Oh,
because-
you are for that.
No, no, no.
All right.
No, I want to go into expound upon that.
Yeah, let's go.
Because imagine, now this is me, being a little philosophical with the libertarian thing and so forth. But in a free market, if that, like you said, took place where you have, say, a restaurant owner, pizza guy, racist Italian guy, whatever, he doesn't want to serve black people, right? Obviously, he doesn't have that choice because, whatever, he would get thrown in jail or whatever because there's laws against that. But I think it would be an interesting thing for the public to see, like, his business collapse.
Yeah.
Well, and to
You know
see
what I'm
that
saying?
racism is not as prevalent as the media
Yeah,
wants you to think it is.
exactly. So I when I was thinking about that, today, like, we would, everybody that I know would be, like, just
Staunchly against that.
and foaming at the mouth, just waiting for his business to close and him to just go into bankruptcy, and he'd probably get pillaged and something else. But
Stoned to death.
exactly,
Be a good
but
way to
like
go out.
it would be interesting, I think, for the public to see something like that take place, where it's like, no, we're not going to go to this guy's restaurant because he's a racist garbage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, I think it would be interesting for people to be able to like experience that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, like, yeah, no, most people don't support that.
I have a feeling
Regardless of how good his food is, like, I'm not going to go
I'm
there
not going to
because
give
he's,
this guy my money.
like, he's a piece, you know?
Right.
I think you'd see a lot like the day after 9/11 where the entire country was united to destroy one specific person.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. But and in some ways, like, that united us.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, we don't agree with that.
I think his business would be burnt to the ground by the end of the night.
Well, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. But in the same time, it'd be like, it'd be interesting just to, like, I just think, like, in some ways, that would bring us together.
Yeah.
Because it's not laws that are preventing us, it's people agreeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do not accept racism.
Mhm.
We do not accept this guy's values and morals. Like, and let's just watch him go out of business.
Yeah.
Like, everything he worked for, just gone.
Yep.
Because he decided to take a stand, which he had the right to. But look around and look at the public, how they're not on board with that. I just thought that was something I was thinking about. Really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, that's a good point though, because I mean the way the media and a lot of these politicians portray racism, you'd think that every single person you walk by is a racist. You know what I mean?
Right.
When
Right.
if you live in the real world, you know that that's not the case, or I at least hope you think that that's not the case, because I truly don't think it is.
Right. But
And I mean, shit, you even seen it with the George Floyd thing, right? Once he was killed, I mean, how many of, like, until it started getting violent and, was senselessly violent,
right.
how many people were for it up until that point?
Oh, I think
Were with it, you know what I mean?
like 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
I was even, in favor of the whole thing until, it started getting violent and
until they started burning down police stations. Then you were
actually,
for it.
that's when I was for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was like, hey, listen, they have a problem with the police and they're taking it on the police. It wasn't until they started
seems
burning.
logical.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was like, why are you taking it out on the
Nike store,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Prada bags. Yeah,
Well, I think they had a really unique opportunity there.
And they fucking blew it.
They did.
They just blew it.
Yeah, they absolutely blew
Yeah.
it. They had
Yeah,
an
I think,
opportunity to really enforce, and they had a lot of weight behind them to enforce, like, real
Change.
change.
Yeah, a
You
huge
know,
part of the country was really on board with them. People who were, don't even pay attention to politics or don't really care about that stuff generally. Mm-hmm. They were
All
all
for it.
in. Yeah.
I gotta say, man, you gotta give it up to the Democrats. They successfully bamboozled the entire country, promising all this change, and what have we seen since?
I just think back of to that picture of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi in the squad,
Oh my
kneeling with
God.
those African tribal scarves on.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
And then didn't it come out that was like one of the largest slave-owning tribes
Yes,
in the world?
Yeah, the colors that they were wearing were of the the tribe that sold a bunch of Africans to the Europeans and whatnot. So,
And then the pictures came out. They were like kneeling on little pads and stuff, like to protect their knees. It's like that's our
government for you.
it's virtue signaling at its best, pandering to the.
But I mean, I don't know. Did that make kind of your point?
Yeah, I think I was just interesting, like to kind of bring up a little. If you haven't really heard like too much about the libertarian or even anarchist like point of view when it comes to discrimination, most, if not all, should agree that discrimination, the right to discriminate, which is I think usually phrased as what the right to association.
Freedom of association.
Freedom of association, we believe in 100%, which unfortunately allows people to associate or not associate with people based on skin color, which I would say at this table we 100% disagree with.
And also based on anything else.
Correct. But usually that's the one that people usually look at most.
Yeah, that people will latch on to.
But
for the record, I think one of the main benefits of freedom of association is that you're actually cutting down on a lot of interactions between people that don't like each other. You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's a plus. If
That's a good point.
If people don't like each other, they probably shouldn't be, interacting constantly because sort of stuff leads to
like one little minor thing before I get to that you just said that brings me there is again freedom to association. Another thing great about it too is you get to see, like Cameron stated earlier, who are the real pieces of shit in society, right?
Right.
If you see a deli that has a sign that says no Asians, right? Well, fuck that guy. Why is that guy going to be in business? I'm not going to give him my money.
Yeah, I'm all for.
Then that's the free market saying we're not giving him money. So more than likely, we would assume there's not that many people out there, again, within its own society saying, yeah, we agree with this guy. Asians fucking suck. Because they don't. And then his business will die.
Right.
And that's the free market taking its course as it should. Where right now we have a government in place that
prevents people from showing their true colors.
Again, correct.
I'm all for letting everyone you know what I mean? Like, look at me, I'm an asshole.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to shop there.
And that's a big part of the critical race theory angle too, is that it's not necessarily overt racism. It's covert racism where, you wouldn't tell anyone, but you just, have a certain, racist thoughts about a certain race or something. Whereas in this case, people would just put it out there. Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Because then they'd get their restaurant burned to the ground.
Right.
Which then, again, we might come to a point where we are right now, but at least we have the opportunity for people to make that mistake and show their true colors.
Our special guest has arrived with the ice cubes.
Yeah, is this our ad break ice cube?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rub Me Dry. Rub Me Dry is the world's first ever dry application sunscreen. Probably. No one likes getting burnt, but no one likes feeling like a greased up blind man running from a pack of conquistadors trying to tickle their butthole. Well, Rub Me Dry has solved this dilemma. With their patent pending solution, they found a way to stay protected from the rays while also feeling as smooth as a set of freshly shaved plums. Gone are the days of feeling like you were on the receiving end of a bukkake, just to then be thrown into an oven like a maple glazed ham. And hello to the days of staying dry and protected, from the sun at least. This is the part where I'm legally supposed to tell everyone that Rub Me Dry has gone through no human testing and has shown very poor preliminary lab results. I'm also legally obligated to tell you that they do in fact test on animals and oftentimes results in very severe, very painful, and very deadly results for many of the animals they test on. With that being said, Rub Me Dry is offering Politics on the Rocks listeners a 95% discount with code POTR95, all caps. I also have to legally tell you that by using code POTR95, you're automatically agreeing to take place in the first human trials, and Rub Me Dry has no legal obligation to reimburse any medical expenses for any condition that may or may not result from using the Rub Me Dry. Conditions including, but not limited to, severe burning, scratching, skin falling off, or giving birth to pygmy rat-looking babies. Our lawyers also wanted us to add that we, Politics on the Rocks, cannot give you medical advice, whether it be for medication or more specifically to use Rub Me Dry, and are not legally liable for any of the aforementioned conditions. Now back to the show.
So, thank you to our ad, and now we're back. I think we all kind of agreed in the little break that we've kind of beat this to death, so just some closing thoughts. Me personally, the whole banning critical race from public schools, I think it's just another Desantis Daddy D kind of Trump move where he's just trying to rally up his supporters and gain some of those last year kind of support for the re-elections. I don't think it's necessarily the best use of resources. To go back to my point, I just think that the money would be better spent to free up the market and give a little more choice. So if you want your child to learn critical race theory, you have that choice, and if you don't, you have that choice. I know we have that choice now because there are such thing as private schools, but with how the system is set up, they're not exactly what's the word I'm looking for? They're not exactly easily accessible for the majority of people. You typically have to have a little bit of money to do public schooling or private schooling. But yeah, that's kind of where I land on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a huge fan of banning stuff.
Agreed.
I think that the critical race theory, if it was, theoretically implemented like nationwide and all the schools were teaching it, I don't think it would have a net positive effect on this country. But I mean, I really, even if it wasn't banned, I don't believe it's going to be a nationwide thing. And so yeah, I don't see the point. I guess it's kind of a Band-Aid maybe.
Yeah, I guess my closing points are very similar to your guys. Me seeing government ban things kind of puts a sour taste in my mouth. But from the great man himself, I think Dave Smith said this. Even though we all can agree that the place we want to get to is no schools, in the sense of no public schools, I should say, or even get to like a voucher system or just more freedom in the market when it comes to schooling. If you do believe that you don't want critical race theory and you are a libertarian or anarchist, you should still speak up for it not being in place, because you still have to take your wins where you can get them.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's a good call.
We all see the big picture of what we want to be, and then we should all still see what we can still get from what's still in place.
Yeah.
All right.
Any thoughts, Cam? Or are you just going to repeat what we said?
Yeah,
We're becoming an echo chamber. Oh, shit.
No, I mean, yeah, I agree with everybody around the table. Just, more freedom. It's like a tough subject to talk about when you don't agree with the whole premise of the idea of public schools. But like Boogie said, I mean, if it's something that you don't agree with, well, you don't have a say anyways because it's already passed. So there you go. There's your government.
Yeah, tough luck, buddy.
Well, with that said, Cam, you have some shit you wanted to touch on from last episode?
Yeah. I mean, in our notes this week, we talked a little bit about 10% of the manatees dying.
Yep.
More than usual. So 10% more, right, Book?
So I think we should want to throw a thank you to all the listeners for taking up their part.
Yeah,
in the,
I've seen you guys out there on your longboards and your hatchets with your hatchets out.
Yeah,
you've made politics on the rocks very happy.
No, but in all honesty, I think that's something that's been going on this year, right? Where they've seen uptick in deaths.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Remember, pin that throttle through the manatee zone. Do your part to clean up
Redline
the lagoon.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just something that I thought was interesting to bring up because we brought it up before.
Yeah.
Talked about manatees doing some interesting things in the lagoon because they don't have anything to eat because there's no grass.
So do we... Yeah, is that... do you think that's one of the reasons they're dying is they don't have enough food?
Well, as a scientist... yeah, I do.
As a weekend warrior scientist.
As a scientist. No, yeah, I do. I absolutely do think that. I mean, there's a lot of manatees and not a lot of stuff to eat.
Yeah.
And I think that is the issue, man. I think they're hungry and they're trying to find a place to eat, and there's just not grass,
Maybe we need to, maybe this is like our actual calling. We need to find out ways to make more things out of manatee hide. So we can see like a little bit of an influx in.
You think it'd make a pretty
manatees.
good wetsuit, maybe? Like a
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what kind of.
Manatee
Well, they're
leather?
not. They're typically in. They're not really in cold
Yeah.
water, right? So
No.
yeah, they do have a lot of fat on them.
All right,
though.
we'll figure
So
something
maybe-
They
out.
look real
Yeah.
fatty. But
I don't know.
I mean,
Wallets.
just to speak on the lagoon. So I was out on the paddleboard yesterday. Yeah, I was out yesterday, and it was garbage, man. They got
Slow?
So this time of year, plus whatever else is happening, which is interesting because I didn't think it would be as nasty as it was, but because we haven't had much rain. But man, dude, there's like this stuff that floats around, and it's like the blue-green algae stuff.
It's the shit that looks like a lot of people call it manatee shit. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it looks like little feces.
Yeah.
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 Oh man, it was really bad. It was all over the place.
Shitty fishing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I see
I
you
mean,
caught a nice little snook, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple shots. I caught a couple snook and I lost a big one because
Yeah.
I'm terrible. But yeah, I lost a real good one. But anyways, that stuff was floating around. It was awful. So just a
Yeah, I mean, so this is
little update.
we're getting into our warm season now, so this is kind of something we should expect in a sense, right? Though, where once the warmer season comes, the
More of the algae. And,
the algae is able to, bloom in effect more,
reproduce.
Right.
and the water's more acclimated for that to happen. Now, I guess in a sense, so we're speaking about the lagoon again. I'm interested to see if no one's, if I'm Vero at all. Vero Beach does not have a
Inlet. Yeah.
So an inlet, as far as I, would describe it, is a pathway for fresh water, again, the lagoon, and the salt water from the ocean to mix, in a sense, right? To kind of
It
come
brings
in
so
and come
much
out.
so much clean water into the river.
Yeah, it just keeps it
Yeah.
moving, right?
Mhm.
So Vero Beach is in between two, in the sense that there's one in Sebastian
Yeah.
and there's one in Fort Pierce.
Right.
Now, are the algae blooms worse in those areas, or are they better in a sense where there's less?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you start thinking about algae blooms, you already think about like Port St. Lucie and places like that.
Where they can get bad when it used to dump,
But
right?
it's mostly, I think it's
Mike.
response to the dumping of Okeechobee or whatever. But yeah, I don't. I mean, an inlet probably would change that.
But doesn't it
Or
get pretty
something.
bad in Jupiter? And Jupiter has an inlet right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Well, that's when they used to dump it too, though,
But that's
right?
like the effect of like the
True.
Okeechobee being dumped into the
Yeah.
river. Or
So
whatever.
it'd be interesting to see this year, because I think they're not dumping as much as they used to, right? I think we talked about that when we were talking the
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if minimal dumping or less dumping.
Well, it'd be nice instead of spending $5 million a year to dump sand on the beach that just covers our, the beautiful reefs that we used to
Right.
have here that are a natural erosion barrier to begin with.
Yeah.
And we use that money to, I mean, you don't have to build a legit inlet like the one in Sebastian or
Well,
Fort Pierce. You
Vero
could do
had
it
an inlet.
underwater where it,
Yeah.
or under land, I guess is a
Yeah.
better word, where it,
Right.
can funnel at least some of that clean water in, because
Well, so you know what like JC Beach is?
there is one, isn't there?
Well, there used to be an inlet. There.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, when you drive by on A1A right
You
there,
could see it.
Well, you can see how close the river is to the ocean, and that actually used to be an inlet. And for whatever reason, I don't know the history behind it, but it's
There actually was one there, though?
yeah, there was.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. There
Yeah, I was with
I think it was
an old fisherman, and I was talking to him about that, and
Yeah.
he wasn't sure, and
Yeah, no, I heard that there was, and I don't know. It was difficult to maintain it or whatever was the idea behind it, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It was real nasty. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
I was just give you an update on that bad boy.
Yeah, so I guess it would make sense that, based on our last topic, right, or our last talk about manatees,
Yeah,
if there's abundance more now manatees, and there's less grass, like Cameron said, and like you even stated, it would make sense they're dying off if there's not enough food source for them.
right.
So in a sense, this is kind of like what should happen. We shouldn't really keep them alive more than they should be, because unfortunately, this is what
the
Nature-
ecosystem can't sustain it.
this is
Right.
nature taking its course.
right,
right.
we protected them to the point where
It's unnatural,
yeah,
almost in a sense.
Yeah, right. Which is the case with a lot of
Yeah.
species like Goliath groupers and
And we're scientists, so we can say these.
Yeah,
kind of
we're
things.
completely 100% correct on everything we say.
Yep. everything we say should be taken as factual, and And on that note, we're gonna have the Teskey Brothers "Hold Me."
Oh yeah, did we?
No, we didn't. That's why I just said
okay.
it.
So this is the song we used in the beginning.
Oh, that was cool. The song ended perfectly.
Ended perfectly, didn't it?